all of you, and welcome you all for the webinar series. This is the first session of the webinar series, and this is organizing from the Candy APIIT campus. And I'm Anuttara. I'm attached to the computing school at APIIT Candy campus, and we are focusing to discuss some areas in your A-level paper. We are going to take questions, and then we are going to focus about the problems that you're supposed to address during your paper, and then we are going to revise the contents that you have done in the school, related to each and every section that we are going to look into throughout the session. So today we are going to focus about the ER diagrams. I have selected 4 questions from the past papers, and before that I'm going to give you a small revise kind of a thing, revision session before starting the paper discussion. Okay, so if you have any questions, you feel free to ask. You can raise your hand, and then you can unmute yourself and you can raise your question for us, or else you can use the chat box available in the Zoom application. You can use that. And meanwhile, I'm sharing my screen with you all. If you can't see the screen and if I'm not audible for you, please let me know via the chat or by raising your hands. Okay, so sometimes to maintain a good quality, a good bandwidth, I'm going to switch off my video with a video, and I'm going to share the screen on sometimes, but all the time you would be able to see my screen and the contents that we are going to discuss. Okay, right, so let's start. As I told you, today we are going to focus on the ER diagram section, the question section that you are you are going to do in your paper. And before the questions, I'm going to do the revision session for you. Okay, I'm going to revise you what are these ER diagrams, and what are the main components available in the ER diagram, and relationships and the attributes. And we are going to see how we can draw an ER diagram by looking at the things that we have learned. Okay, right, so let me share my screen with you. So give me a second to share. Okay, right. Okay, right. Hope you can see my screen. If it is not visible, please raise your hand, or else please send a notification for the chat. Right, so now in ERD diagram, right? ERD diagram, why we are developing an ER diagram, right? ER diagrams are using to model the databases, right? We know these days, we are into databases. If we define a database, we could go with okay, it's a collection of data, right? And now we know most of the organizations they are dealing with large amounts of data. So because of that, in order to handle those data very efficiently, we need to use databases, right? So as a developers, right, as developers, you supposed to develop databases, right? So when you're developing databases, at a high level point, we have a process of development. At a high level point, we supposed to draw a diagram, right? We have to we supposed to model this. Then only we would be able to identify what what we have to include and what we have to exclude from the database. Then in that case, one type of a modeling tool is this ERD diagrams. ERD stands for entity relationship diagrams. Okay, ERD. And when you're like learning further, like that means after your A levels, if you are going to select the computer science as your like career path, then when you're learning further, you will learn another type of a diagram called ERD. That means enhanced ERD diagrams. Okay, enhanced entity relationship diagrams, which is more complex, like with some kind of a like extended amount of data available in the diagram, right? So entity relationship diagram, the word itself, it says entities and the relationships, right? So like we're supposed to identify the entities available, right? When we are giving a scenario kind of a thing, like most of the time all the nouns within the scenario would be entities, right? So in the ERD diagrams, like we have a formal notation. This is a universal notation, and universally accepted notation, and that's the standard, right? So what you have to do is, when you're like before drawing this ERD diagrams, you have to familiar with the notations available. Otherwise, without the standard notations, you won't be able to come up with a proper ER diagram. That's the idea, right? So entities, I told you, normally like it's an object, right? Or the real world object, right? That you have inside the given scenario. Let's say if it is like about the library management system, then within there, like we're supposed to find out what are the real world objects. It would be like a librarian would be a real world object, and book would be a real world object, right? And member of the library member would be a real world object. So like that, we're supposed to identify what are the real world objects available, right? And all these real world objects would be entities in your ER diagram, right? So like you can see here, in ERD notations, how we could define an entity, how we can represent the entity. We are using a triangle, rectangle, right? Okay, sorry. So here we are supposed to write the entity name, right? Inside the rectangle, inside the given notation, we are supposed to write the entity name, right? And when you're writing the entity name, you have to be more careful. You have to use only the singular terms, right? That means I know when you're dealing with school management system, let's say we have a lot of students, but then students would be one kind of a real world object. So even though we have multiple students, when we're writing the entity, we're supposed to write it as student. Okay, so those are the tips that you have to follow when you're drawing the entities, right? So always use this as singular terms, and also the first letter of the entity name should be a capital letter. So here they have given this example student, so all the characteristics are available. We have the correct notation, the rectangle is there, and then singular term student, and the first letter is capital. So that's how we're supposed to draw the entity, right? And how you're supposed to identify the entities, right? Like after reading your brief, right, underline all the nouns that you have in the brief. So all the nouns would be entities in your ER diagram. So that's the idea, okay? And then let's see further. Right, so let me take the other aspect. In ER diagram, not only entities, to describe the entity more, we are using attributes, right? So these attributes are helping us to describe the entity in more details, right? So here you could see attribute, you all know, right? We could use this oval sign, right, to denote an attribute. And then that's the standard notation we're supposed to use here. And the attribute name we should write inside the oval, right? And here when you're writing the attribute name, right, there is no any rules like entities. When you're writing the entities, you have to make sure that you are using singular, and the first letter should be capital letter. But when you're writing attributes, there are no any rules to follow, right? So here you could see I have taken just one entity. The entity name is staff. In order to describe more this this entity more in detail, I have added 3 different attributes, right? You could see one attribute is the name. We could use the name to describe the staff member, And the other attribute is the position. We could use the position to describe the staff member, and the other like attribute is the salary. So we can use that particular attribute to describe the staff member more. So that's the idea, right? So here, like entity and the attribute, we could connect from a line, just a line. Here we are not using any arrows or any dash lines or dotted lines. No, just a one line. Okay, no arrowheads, like just a one line in order to connect this attribute and the activity. So we have attributes as well, right? So entities are the real world objects, right? In order to describe these real world objects more in detail, we are using attributes. That's the idea. So normally, like have your own like a type of a writing style. Like you could use like I mean, in your, like you can have your own right rules, right? Like okay, you can have a rule like, okay, when you're writing attributes, I'm going to use all simples like that. Or else if it is a like attribute name, I'm going to use like the first letter as a capital letter and then like other letters as simple, right? It's up to you to decide, right? So to write the attributes, there is no any rules, but when you're writing the entity, always remember the two rules that I have mentioned earlier, right? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so we said that to use to describe the entities more, we are using attributes, and here we have different types of attributes. Okay, different types of attributes are available. So the first attribute type that I'm going to discuss is the composite attributes, right? Composite, you could see here, I have taken an example. We have the entity called employee, right? And then for that particular employee entity, I have taken a one attribute called name, right? And this name, we can further divide into sub attributes, right? Here, name could be consist with a surname, first name, and the middle name. So that means this is the main attribute, and we could divide it further for sub attributes. So name is a composite attribute. That's the idea. We can divide this further, right? So here, surname, we cannot divide it further. So it's a normal attribute, okay? Its first name, we can't divide it further. So it's another normal attribute. Middle name, we can't divide it further. So it's a normal attribute. But name could be divided as like this. So we could have surname, first name, and the middle name. And this is going to be decided by the when you're going to design the database, you have to decide on this, right? Do we need to filter all the names, right? Like if it is a name like okay, first name, middle name, surname, we have seen on some databases they are taking the first name and the last name or the surname, that's it. And some databases, they are just asking the name. They are not like specifically asking, okay, you have to enter your surname, first name, and the middle name. No, right? So it depends with the scenario that you are dealing with. Let's say you are going to design a database for like online ordering system, right? So they are like, name is very critical attribute. So you have to take the correct name from the customer. Then you can go with a composite attribute. And also in order to ship the ordered items, we need the shipping address. So address is a critical aspect when it comes to the online ordering system. So in that case, we could divide the address, so we could divide the address, right? Address like this, right? This is the main attribute. And we could divide this address like street address, street line, and then address line 1. You may have seen these things, right? And then address line 2, right? And the city. Okay, like that, we can further divide this, because these things are very critical when it comes to the online ordering systems. But let's say now, you are going to create a student information system or a library management system. Then there are address is not some kind of a critical aspect. Then you could give just one attribute, okay, address. So within there you can store your address, right? Because these days we are using phones, these days we are using email address, so those are there. So from those things, those attributes, we would be able to contact them. That's the idea. But here, if it is an online ordering system or the database, then address is very critical aspect, that because you need to ship your items, the ordered items, to the customer's doorstep. So that's the idea. Okay. Right, so this is the first type of the attribute. Like we have the normal attributes as well as we have the other type, that is the composite attribute. Like we would be able to divide the attribute for further sub attributes. That's the idea. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. So we done with the composite attributes, right? And the other attribute type that I just wanted to discuss, derived attributes. Okay, derived attributes. Derived attributes means sometimes, look at this example. I have taken the employee entity, okay, and we have name as the attribute and we have the age as the attribute, right? Because normally this age value, let's say now we are storing the age inside the database, right? So yearly age is changing, we know that, right? Yearly the age is changing. Right, so if we store the age, that is not going to be work with the database, because database, if we are maintaining a database, that database should be a quality database. How we can define this quality? The quality of the data would tell, okay, how much quality of this particular database. What is the quality level of this particular database? Okay, so then in that case, storing age would fine for a 1 year, but after that year, for the next year, age value would be some kind of an expired thing, because it is increasing, right? Yearly it is increasing. So then, like, taking the age is not a good idea when you are like designing the databases. So what you can do is you can ask for the date of birth from the employees, right? That means DOBs. Date of birth from the employees, you're storing the date of birth. And then you have the age column, that is of course fine, but here you are not storing the direct age. What you're going to do is, you are going to calculate the age from the DOB attribute, from the date of birth attribute. So calculate, or you're going to derive the age from this particular main attribute. So then the age attribute would be a derived attribute. Okay, so this is the notation how you could define a derived attribute, right? You have to use the same as the oval notation. You have to use the dashed lines like this. Okay, and then in middle you're supposed to write the attribute name. That's the idea. Okay, so here age would be a derived attribute. We are not storing the age inside. What we are going to do is internally within the database software, what we are going to do is we are going to calculate the age from the date of birth, right? DOB, right? That means we can take the today's date and we have the DOB with us. We have stored that and we can do the subtraction, and then we can find out what is the age. So these attributes are known as derived attributes. Okay, so this is the second type of attributes that we have, apart from the normal attributes, right? Normal attributes are there, composite attributes are there, then the derived attributes are there. Okay, and we have another type of an attribute. So let me find it for you. Yeah. Okay, here I'll draw it and show you, right? We have another attribute type. I'll draw it for you. Think inside the derived. No, I don't have. Okay, I'll draw it here. Right. We have something called multi-valued attributes. Okay, what is that? Multi-valued. Okay, so multi-valued, that means for that particular attribute, there could be more than one entry. Okay, there could be more than one entry. Let's say now our example, right? Employee entity. Okay. And let's say we have an attribute called phone number or the contact number, right? Phone number. Right? Phone number attribute is there. Let's say should be an oval sign. Okay, phone number attribute is there, right? We know, like if we think about yourself, right? Think about yourself. You have your mobile phone number, you have that contact number, and you have your home contact number as well. When it comes to the employees, we have like phone mobile contact number, home contact number, residence number, and then like office contact number, right? 3 numbers are there, right? So like let's say now here this is about employees, so organization need to like maintain the employees records, so they're supposed to contact the employee that when they need it. So because of that, if the mobile phone is not answering, we can try the direct line, the office line is not answering, we can try the mobile line. If it is, if the both are not working, let's say situations like this, we are under working from home situation, so then it would be able to like contact you by using the home telephone number. So all 3 numbers we need, right? So in that case, we can make this attribute as a multi-valued attribute, right? So how we could make it? We could draw double lines here, right? We could draw double lines here like this. Okay, so the idea behind this is multi-valued. That means this particular attribute can contains more than one value. That's the idea, right? Examples, your email address, sometimes you have office email address and you have personal email address, right? So then like email could be a multi-valued attribute. Okay, and there are some instances like where like you have like a multiple number of addresses, you can take that, right? Let's say you are residing at your like boarding school, then let's say like you have 2 addresses, right? So in that case we supposed to take both addresses, right? So like that, right? Maybe vehicle numbers, right? If you have multiple vehicles, you can store like all the vehicle numbers there, right? So in this case, we supposed to go with a multi-valued attribute. Okay, so altogether we discuss about like normal attributes. That's the normal attribute that we are using to describe the entity, and we have composite attribute, right? Composite attribute, we would be able to divide the attribute further for the sub attributes, and then we discuss about the derived attribute. Derived in the sense we are deriving that value of the attribute from another attribute with the help of another attribute. That's the idea. And then we discuss about the multi-valued attribute, like which has this like what multiple values inside the given attribute. So these are the things that we have under the attribute category, right? So like when you have a scenario, right, what you have to do is you have to identify the nouns. So the nouns would be the entities, and if they have explained these nouns more, right, then those would be the attributes. So that's how you're supposed to identify the entities and the attributes within the given scenario. Okay, so children, please, if you have any questions, you could use the chat option, or else like you can raise your hand and then you can like raise your question that you want to like clarify. Okay, so now we have discussed entity, right? Okay, our like the topic is what? Entity relationship diagrams, right? So like we have discussed entities, and then we supposed to discuss about the relationships. Yes, do we have a question? Yes, do we have any questions? Okay, right. So I can't see any raise hands or like chat notifications. Okay, so let's continue. So now, like as I told you, now we know what are the entities. Okay, we have one like question. Let me check. Okay, thank you, Ishini, for the feedback. Okay, right. So now we know what are the entities. Now we supposed to see what are these relationships, right? Because the name itself says entity relationship diagrams, right? ERD, entity relationship diagrams. Okay, right. So let's see relationships. Okay, right. So here, like in between entities, right? In between entities, we could have relationships, right? So here the relationship, the notation is the diamond notation, right? So you could see here, this is a relationship, right? And we have given like what? Relationship name as well inside the diamond notation, right? And here we have two entities here, and by using this relationship, we could tell to the others, okay, by drawing this particular diagram, okay, these two entities, they have some kind of a relationship. That's the idea, right? So we are using this diamond notation, and inside the diamond notation, we supposed to write the relationship name, right? You could see here it's works in, right? We have the two entities. One is the employee and the other one is the department. So we could see a relationship. What is that? Employee works in a department. See, that's the relationship. You could read in both ways, right? So, like employee works in a department, employee works in a department, or like a department consists with employees, right? You could use either way, I mean, that you like. Okay, so either like you could start from employee works in department, or you could say department consists with employees, like that. Okay, so here we are using this diamond notation, and make sure you write your relationship here, right? What is the relationship? You have to write that. And how you supposed to identify the relationship from a given scenario? You need to identify the verbs inside the scenario. We know about nouns. All the nouns are entities, and if they have explained the nouns more, those are attributes, right? And within the scenario, verbs or the verb groups would be your relationships, right? So by reading your scenario, you would be able to understand what are the verbs inside the scenario. So those would be your relationships. That's the idea. Okay. And then when we're talking about the relationships, right? When we're talking about the relationships, yeah, this one. Okay. We have different types of relationships, right? We have different types of relationships. And according to my previous example, the employee works in a department, right? There you have seen we have one letter and a number, right? Like near to the two entities, right? This is known as cardinality ratio. Cardinality ratio, okay? In ER diagrams, we have three types of cardinality ratios for three different types of relationships, right? So here you could see the first cardinality ratio that I have given here, that is 1 to 1. Okay, how you supposed to write it? Like this, 1 and 1 from numbers, right? 1 to 1 relationships. If you have a 1 to 1 relationships, you have to denote it. Okay, this is 1 to 1 relationship, right? So that's why we have numbers in like near to the entities, right? And here we have another relationship type, that is 1 to many, right? So here you could see 1 and n. I'll tell you why they have used this n and why they have used this m as well, right? Okay, so here like you could use m as well, right? Instead of using n in 1 to many, you could use m as well. Okay, and then we have another relationship. What is that? Many to many, right? Many to many. So in that case, how we supposed to write the cardinality ratio? We supposed to write the cardinality ratio like this, n and m, right? Why? Like here now you could understand, okay, if it is 1 to 1, okay, 1 and 1. If it is 1 to many, you could write 1 and n, or you could write 1 to like this, many. Here, if it is many to many, okay, instead of using n, they have used like n here, right? This is many to many. Okay, why can't we use M and M here? Normally, like the same letter, we are not repeating. That's the idea. Other than that, we don't have any idea here. We can't repeat the same letter. So after M, we have N. That's why they have taken N here, right? Two M's like this, we can't put. Okay, so this is wrong. So if it is many to many, we have to put N in one side, and the other side we can use the M, right? After the M, we have N. That's the idea, right? Okay, that's it. So here, one to many, right? You could use either N or you could go with M as well. Anything, right? Okay. So we have seen we have a relationship type called one-to-one, right? So we need to understand what is this one-to-one relationship, right? In one-to-one relationship, you could see for this particular relationship, both the entities are participating individually. That's the idea. See, here we have the managers, right? Managers relationship. So how we are reading this, we can read employee manages a department, and department has just a manager or managing by an employee. Okay, department is managing by an employee. That's the idea. So here we have one-to-one relationship. How we can find that? For a department, there could be only one manager. That's how we put just one. And an employee can be just can be a manager in just a one department. That's the normal scenario, right? So that's how we are reading, right? So here department can have only one manager. So this one is that is the idea of this one. And then employee can be a manager in a one department. So here we have one-to-one relationship, right? If I take another example, president and a country, right? So or a king or a country, right? King rules a country, we know. So one-to-one relationship, right? For the country, we can have only one king. For a king, there could be only one country in a general scenario. Clear? So those are one-to-one related. Principal and school, right? For a school, we have just one principal, and for a principal, there could be just one school. So all these things are one-to-one relationships, right? So here we're supposed to put the cardinality ratio like this, 1 and 1. Okay, right. So let's move on to the one-to-many relationship. Okay, so this is the one-to-many relationship. Fine. Look at this. Now we have employee here and we have department, the two entities, right? And here we have the relationship, what is that works in, right? And here normally we know, right? For a department, if we take this side, for a department, there could be many number of employees. That's why they have put N here, right? For a department, there could be many employees. For an employee, normally one employee is attaching to one particular department. So for an employee, they can work in a one department. That's the idea. So for a department, there could be many number of employees. An employee can work under a one department. That's the idea. So here we have one-to-many relationship. As I told you, you can change this N to M, no issue on that, right? One-to-many relationship. That's the idea. Okay, and we have in a classroom, we have just one teacher with many number of children, right? Or many number of kids, right? One teacher and kids, right? No, then one-to-many relationship. Right, so in a lecture hall also we have lecturers, and then we have children or students, then one-to-many relationship like that. Okay, there are a lot of instances where we could apply this one-to-many relationship. That's the idea. Okay, and then the last relationship type that we have, that is the many-to-many relationship. Here, this example you could see, we have employees and we have projects. Right, and the relationship is works on, right? So normally in here, in this particular scenario, they says that an employee can work on several projects. Okay, right, fine. An employee can work on several projects, fine. A project can have many employees work on it, right? So in that case, project, there are many number of employees. And for an employee, there could be many number of projects. So that's the idea. So that's why they have selected this particular example for this many-to-many relationship. So we have the cardinality ratios here. We know the reason why we can't put double M here. Just put M and then N. Either you can exchange the sides. No issue on that, right? So like basically these are the three relationships that we have. So now we know what are the entities and then relationships, right? And now we're supposed to draw the diagrams together. That's the idea. Okay. And before moving to that, before moving to the questions, right? I just wanted to explain two other things, right? When you like, if you are going to like continue the studies in computer science stream, you would learn more on the ER diagrams. But here, like, I just wanted to highlight two other things as well, right? One is this descriptive attributes, right? Okay. We know like what attributes are using to describe the entities, right? Okay, attributes are using to describe the entities, but sometimes we need attributes to describe the relationships as well. Okay, we need attributes to describe the relationships. So if you are going to couple an attribute with a relationship, right? So that attribute would be a descriptive attribute. So you have to understand. Look at this, right? So now employee is there, entity, department is there, it's a separate entity. So they have a relationship. What is that? Works in. So we could have, okay, works in. Now employee is working in this particular department since when? Right? Okay, so then in that case, we have a problem. For which side we have to put this particular attribute, right? Is it for the department side? Since no, it is not matching. Is it for the employee side? No, because this since attribute came with this particular works in relationship. So in that case, since attribute, we have to couple it with the relationship. That's the idea. Right? So if you have an attribute with the relationship, that is known as descriptive attribute. So that's the idea. Okay. So here we could understand, okay, they have given an example. Namal works in accounts department since 2008. So that's how we should read, right? Namal works in accounts department since 2008. Let's say we have instead of having this one-to-many relationship, let's say we have many-to-many relationship. That means in some situation it could be happen, right? So here see, like for a department there are many number of employees. For an employee there could be attached to many number of departments. So in this case, right, so we are in trouble. We don't know this employee in which department working since like when. Okay, we don't know that. So then, right, this since attribute should be coupled with the relationship. That's the idea, right? So we have another type of attribute now, right? Apart the things that we have discussed so far, that is the descriptive attributes. And also you have to remember always descriptive attributes are with the relationships. You need to understand that, right? So we have normal attributes, we have composite attributes, right? And we have derived attributes, we have multi-valued attributes, and we have descriptive attributes. Altogether 5 different attributes are there. That's the idea, right? And I just wanted to highlight another thing I told you, that is what? Weak entities. Okay, because when I'm going through your questions, I have seen that there are some instances that you should apply the weak entity concept as well, right? So now we discuss what are these entities, right? You know, right? All the nouns are coming under entities, right? They are real world objects, right? But there are some nouns or the real world objects or the entities which cannot stand alone, right? They can't stand alone inside the database, right? It is depending on another particular entity, right? So here you could see they have given it is existence dependent on another entity, right? Cannot exist without the entity which has the relationship, Okay, so with now, like we know, like entities, they have relationships now. So if an entity has a relationship with another entity, and this entity cannot stand by itself without the other entity, right, which has the relationship with it, right, then it would become a weak entity. That's the idea, right? So here I'll show you one example. Look at this example. Normally organizations, they are giving insurance policies for their employees, right? So like they can include not only the employee, they could include their dependents for these particular policies, right? So here this is about that scenario, like where like employee can have a policy, insurance policy, and for that particular insurance policy, we could add our dependents, right? Maybe your like spouse and your kids, right? If you are married, you would be able to add your spouse and kids, and if you are not like married, then you would have, you would be able to add your parents for the policy, right? So here now look at this policy, and here employee policy includes its dependents as well, and here like we have a mistake now. This should be dependent, right? Why? It should be a singular form, should be in singular form, no dependence, dependent, right? So here and how we are denoting a weak entity, we have to use a double lines, right? You could see here, if I like zoom like in this much, right, like this, okay, these are double lines, right? So outer the entity also we have to put another line, and then relationship line we have to put another line, and for the relationship diamond also we supposed to put double lines. So that means the idea of this is, okay, dependent entity is a weak entity. So what is the strong entity? Strong entity is the employee. What is the idea behind this? Let's say now employee is leaving the organization, right? So here we supposed to like store the employee details plus this dependent details. That's the idea. That's why we have included this dependent entity to our database, right? So now let's say the employee is leaving the organization. So if the employee is not there, the organization is no longer interested on his dependents or his or her dependents, right? So that means if something happens to this particular employee entity, to the strong entity, the weak entity won't be have some kind of a individual existence. That's the idea. So this entity is totally depending on this employee entity, right? So the best example is this: if the employee leaves the organization is no longer interested on the particular employee's dependents. So they have to remove those things as well with the employee's record, right? So then this would be a weak entity, right? So that's the idea. Right. So we understood, okay, about the entities, all the entities types we have, and then we discuss about the attributes, 5 different attributes done, and we have a special entity called weak entity as well, right? And then like I just wanted to touch another thing, right? Primary keys, right? You have learned this. I'm just like brushing up, okay? I'm just doing a revision kind of a thing. That's it, right? Primary key. In a database, we could designate one particular attribute, or sometimes it more than one, right? If you learn further the computer science, you would be able to learn, okay, if you like, sometimes you can have multiple attributes as keys. Okay, I can see a one chat. Let me check on that. Okay, sure, right? I'll explain about the unary and the superclasses, subclasses. Okay, superclasses and subclasses, not actually classes, right? We have like we can add generalization for the entities. I'll explain that. Okay, fine. So here, primary key, right, is a one attribute that we could use to uniquely identify one particular entity. Okay, so that means now we know we have a lot of employees in our organization. So if we have the employee like table, right, so that table would have more records. Let's say we have like 1,000 employees, then we would be have like 1,000 different rows available in the particular what table, employee table. So then let's see, we want to find a particular employee. then there should be a way of like finding that particular row, right, uniquely from other rows available, right? So in that case, in order to identify a particular record uniquely, right, for each and every table or for each and every entity, we supposed to designate maybe a one attribute or more than one attribute as the primary key, and that primary key should be a unique key, right? So here, like unique attribute, okay, it should be a unique thing, right? It cannot be duplicated, then no longer it is not a primary key, right? So normally as the primary key, like in your context, I'll explain, like we could go with NIC numbers and or the employee numbers. If it is about students, we could go with student numbers, right? And like name kind of a things, we cannot take them as unique attributes. Why? Name could be repeated, name could be duplicated, okay? And address also we can't take the primary key, right? Like I'm getting a like message like my internet connection is unstable. If it is interrupting, please let me know, okay? And then sometimes like there could be more than like one particular like key, right, key attribute. Look at this example. I have taken the example as the employee, and here we have employee ID, which is very unique to the organization, and they are giving unique employee IDs for each and every employees, like a student number, and then they have NIC and the name. So you could select either employee ID or either NIC as the primary key. It's up to you to decide. If the scenario says, okay, use the employee ID to identify the entities uniquely, then you have to go with the employee ID. If it is not mentioning anything, you could select, right, either EID or the employee ID or the NIC. Right? Okay. So these two are the things that you can select. So if you designate this EID as the primary key, the NIC would be a candidate key. That means it is also suitable to be a primary key. Okay, but that is not like key, right? It is what? A candidate key. That is not a primary key, but it could be a candidate key. That's the idea. Okay, so EID you would be able to designate as the primary key. Then other possible, other possible attributes would be candidate keys, right? When you're learning further, right, if you go through this computer science stream, right, when you're learning further, you will learn sometimes just one attribute won't make any unique thing for the entity. So in that case, sometimes we have to combine more than one attribute, and then we have to create a composite primary key, right, with several attributes. So sometimes we have to do that, right? So but I think in your case, all the time you will get some kind of a unique field to make it as a primary key, right? So that's another important fact, right? And in weak entities, we have a special key, right? Weak entities, we have a special key. I'll go back to the weak entities. Okay, here, right? Weak entity, right? We have not a primary key, it's a partial key, right? So each and every weak, and if it is a weak entity, definitely it doesn't have any kind of a primary key, right? It has a partial key. And how we are denoting, if you are denoting primary key, you know, you have to underline the term in the attribute. And if it is a partial key, how you're supposed to do, you have to underline it from a dash line. That's the idea. So this is a partial key, right? Because it cannot stand alone. That's the idea, right? It cannot stand alone. So see, name, they have taken name, okay, in the employees family, dependents names they have estimated, okay, they are not repeating, right? They are not duplicating. right? Somehow it is a unique thing. That's why they have taken name as the that is of course fine. When you are doing the relationship map, I mean relational mapping, you would be able to understand, okay, like fine, this is of course fine by taking the name as the partial key for the weak entity. So that's the idea, right? So these are the things that I just wanted to discuss with you, right? Entity relationship. Now we know what are the entities and the relationships, and then we know how to like come up with the diagrams, right? So within a one scenario, there won't be like just two entities and a one relationship and few attributes. Normally, we are ending up with many number of entities, many number of different relationships, and lot of like different cardinality ratios and so on, right? So for up to this point, do you have any questions? If so, please ask. Please go ahead. Yeah, up to this point. Yeah, you can raise your hand, or else you can paste your question to the to the chat box. Yeah. Yeah, we can go ahead. Yeah, any other question? We have a question here, Super Key. Any other questions? I'll explain what is this Super Key. Yeah, anything that you want to clarify the things that we have discussed so far, the entities, are you confident enough to discuss about the entities and the attributes, to identify the attributes and all? Are you confident enough? Yeah, so I'll take the first question that I got, what is that unary relationships and the superclasses and subclasses. Actually, the class is not the term, right? Sub-entity, super-entity, and the sub-entities, right? So, we understood, right? Relationship we could draw in a what? Diamond notation. My drawings are a little bit bad here, right? Because I'm using a touchpad. That's the thing, right? Okay, let me share my screen. I didn't share the screen as well, right? Okay. So here we know by using a diamond notation, we supposed to build a what? We can draw a relationship, right? So normally we can have two entities like this, right, for a relationship, right? We can have two entities, right, like this for a relationship, right? And this relationship, we can call it as a binary relationship, right? This relationship, we could call it as a binary relationship, right? And there are some instances where you have to where you can connect another relationship, another entity for the same relationship, right? There are some instances where you could connect, right? Where you could connect. Here we don't have any arrows. It's a mistake. That is not an arrow. Okay. So here, this should be a proper line, right? Another entity for the same or the same relationship, and that is known as the unary relationship. And also you can connect another one here, and then it would be a tertiary relationship, right? So we normally, like, if you done the like proper analysis about your ER diagram, I would say like you would have like more on like what binary relationships. Very rarely you are getting these types of relationships, like, because otherwise if you are getting some kind of like these relationships, that means when you're going to normalize it, you have lot to do, right? But if you analyze your diagram scenario properly, right? If you have like more into like binary type of a relationship, you don't have any like type of a like normalization process to be conducted. That's the idea. Okay, so normally like if you can't like understand the things, like if you don't like analyze the things properly, you would end up with something like this, right? But you could still, you could like do the like justifications, and then you would be able to like divide this into other relationships. That's the idea, right? And classes, okay, we don't have any classes here in the ER diagrams. We don't have any classes. It's about the object oriented programming, right? That's the place we are talking about classes and objects, and then encapsulation. Those things are talking under the object oriented programming. Here what we have is, right, I told you something called extend entity relationship diagram, if you can remember, right? In the extend entity relationship diagram, right, let's say we have a university system, right? We have a university system. Let's say we have identified an entity called student. Okay, so we have this scenario. We have this scenario that scenario is what the university scenario. Okay, and there we understand, okay, the student entity. And when we are like analyzing the university system further, we understood there are two types of students, right? There are two types of students. They're talking about this is a university, full-time students and the part-time students. Okay, so let's say now this university is telling, okay, we have students, student and attributes are like student ID is there, age is there, name is there, like address is there, like those things are there. And if it is a part-time student, we are taking their like employer's name, right? Okay, they are explaining it now. Okay, right, all other things are common, but the student ID, age, name, address, these are common things for any student. But if it is a part-time student, we are taking the employer's name, right? If it is a part-time student. If it is a full-time student, like we are going to take some guardian's name, right? If it is a full-time student, okay, we supposed to store the guardian's name. So let's say the scenario is like that, right? So now we could understand, okay, we have the student attribute, and when we are analyzing it, we will get to know, okay, we have two types of students, like part-time and the full-time students, and they have their own attributes as well. So what we can do is, whatever the common attributes, we could add to the main attribute or the super not the attribute, entity, super entity, right? So this would be the super entity. And then from this super entity, we could have a relationship for two other entities. This relationship name is a relationship. Okay, this relationship name is a relationship. Then we could have other two entities like this. Okay, this is how we are drawing the is a relationship, because they don't have the diamond kind of a relationship, right? They have this is a relationship. So here we have full-time student. Okay, and we have part-time student. Okay, right. And then whatever the common attributes we have, like student ID, SID, I'll take it as the primary key. So I have put the underline here, SID. And then name, these are common for both. right? Sorry. These are common for both, even for the full-timers and the part-timers. And then address. Okay. So we can add to the main entity or the super entity, right? And then whatever the unique attributes that they have, right? Full-timers, we said we are taking parents' details or name. Let's say name. That is good. Parent name. Okay. And then for the part-timers, we are taking employer's name. So that's the idea, right? So here, why we have an is a relationship here, we could like read this relationship like full-time student is a student, right? Part-time student is also a student. So that's the idea. So here, like, don't like get confused. Like here, we don't have anything called classes, subclasses, and superclasses. We have entities here, right? When we are talking about the object orientation only, we are calling these things as classes. Then the student would be a superclass, and then like a full-time student would be a subclass or the child class, and the part-time students would be the other child class. So is it clear for you? Just let me know. Is it clear? Yeah. You got the answer for the first question? Okay, right. Right. So let's move to the the second question, right? The super key, right? Super key, like we could identify, I told you, like why we are using a primary key in order to identify, right? In order to identify the row or like what entity uniquely, right? That's why we are using a primary key, right? So we saw that like in the employees attribute, right? We had the employee ID as well as the NIC. So there are some like potential keys, right? There are some potential keys, right? Where we could designate as the primary key. So these potential keys would be the super keys. Okay. And then, right, if we designate a key as the primary key, then it would remove from the super key category and it would be designated as the primary key. And all other super keys would be the candidate keys, right? So here, what is the idea, right? If we have attributes, right? If we have maybe one attribute or more than one attributes, right? Okay. If we have attributes to like uniquely identify a record inside the table or uniquely identify an entity that we want to find out, all the keys, all these attributes, we could designate them as super keys. Okay. And then let's say we are going to select one particular attribute, right? One particular super key, right? As the primary key, then it is going to like upgrade as the primary key. And all other keys would be what? Candidate keys, right? As an example, I'll show you one example. Let's say now we have the entity called employee. Okay. And then we have, let's say, EID, that's the employee ID. Sorry, I'm not designating this as the primary key, right? EID is there, right? Let's say NIC is there. Let's say passport number is there, right? And name is there. We can make a lot of super keys. I'm not going to go deep here. Address is there, right? So we could have super keys, right? Okay, we could have super keys. EID is a super key, right? NIC is a super key. Passport number is a super key, right? We have make other super keys as well. By combining attributes, we can make keys, if you can remember, right? So if I can create EID comma NIC, these two together, super keys, right? And then EID comma NIC comma passport number, it would be a super key. And EID comma name, it would be a super key. EID comma address, it would be a super key. So like that, whatever a combination or maybe one attribute or a combination of lot of attributes, like by using this, if we can identify a particular record uniquely, okay, then those attributes, the set of attributes are known as keys. So these things are super keys then. Okay, so from out of super keys, we are selecting a one key as a what? Primary key. So here I have selected EID as a primary key. So all other things would be candidate keys then, right? So that's the idea. So you can make many number of like super keys. Okay, so any questions? Yes, you got my answer for the question? Okay, right. You're welcome, Hashini. Right. Okay. Any other questions that you want to clarify? Super key, same as like before designating a primary key, all the things would be super keys, right? Once you designate, right, all the possible attribute or attributes would be super keys, right? Before you select one as a primary key, right? After you selecting a one particular, maybe one attribute or more than one attribute as key, as the primary key, then other remaining. So here, see, all these things, you can write this one like, I mean, you can add other things to the list as well. The list is really big, right? Because due to the time, I'm not writing all the things here, because we can create many number of super keys out of these attributes, right? So now all these things are what? Super keys. Okay, now all these are super keys. Now I'm going to select a primary key. So I'm going to select the EID as the primary key. At the moment that I have selected this as the primary key, all other super keys would be changed to candidate keys. Right? It's just a terminology. That's it. Right? Is it clear? So before selecting one attribute or like a combination of attributes, right? Okay, all the things would be super keys, right? And once I designated a one particular attribute or a one particular super key as the primary key, then all other keys would be candidate keys. That's the idea. Okay, right. Right. So are we clear up to this point? I hope like you all are clear. Right. I told you. Yes, same thing. Yes, alternate keys and the candidate keys are same thing. Yes, different terminologies. That's it. Candidates, they have like what? They have like a possibility to be a primary key. That's the idea. Right. So I told you I have selected 4 different questions from the past papers, and let's start from the last year past paper. Okay. I hope at this moment also you have done these things, right? Because now it's very near for the exams. So I know that you have tried these things, right? So let's see. So here now they have given a scenario, right? Okay, they have given a scenario according to our learnings, right? According to the revision session that I have conducted, you know, by reading the scenario, you are supposed to identify your nouns and the verbs and the descriptions given by them. Okay, so let's do it, right? So I know you're familiar with this question. Okay, so here it says consider the following description relating to details of players attached to different sports clubs. Okay, so this is about players and sports clubs. Okay, a player always belongs to a sports club and he or she can be identified uniquely by the NIC number. Further, a player has a name which consists of a surname and the initials. Okay, so here we could identify, okay, according to this description, we have two real world nouns, the entities. We have players and I'll take a different color. Yes, do we have a question? Yeah, sure. Okay, can you see it now? This is the question. Okay, right. Okay, right. So here we're supposed to identify our nouns and the verbs and the descriptions, right? So here we have players, right? And then we have another real world noun, that is sports club, right? Okay, so we have a player and the sports club, right? It says a player always belongs to, right, work, right? Belongs to a sports club and he or she can be identified uniquely. Further, the player is explaining, right? So further, the players are explaining now, right? Okay. Further, the players are explaining by the NIC number, right? And the further, a player has a name which consists of the surname and the initials. So I'm going to explanation. I'm going to underline the explanation from a different color now, right? So here we have by the NIC and it says it's a unique thing, right? Okay, right? And then it consists with name and also it says name which consists of a surname and the initials. Okay, done, right? Okay, now you have to relate it with the theory that we have revised. Okay, and then it says, further it says a club. Okay, club, which is uniquely identified by the name and can have many players. Okay, right. So here uniquely identified by the name and it can have many number of players. Okay, fine. A player can play games. Okay, games. So we have another real world object called games. Each game in the context is given a unique code. Okay, game is explaining further, right? Unique code and a description. Okay, unique code, there's a unique code and a description. A player can play more than one game and each game is played by at least one player. Okay, right. So they have explained, further explaining the relationships as well. Okay, a player can play more than one game and each game is played by at least one player, like that. Okay, and here they have given a note. Use only the relevant words in the above description when drawing the ER diagrams for the following questions. So that means you have to stick to the given description, right? Okay, player could have address. You can't put those things here, right? Just stick to the things that they have given. That's it, right? They have given a special note there, right? Done. Draw an ER diagram for the above description. Okay, now we're supposed to draw the ER diagram for this particular description, right? Okay, so now I just wanted to this zoom out, right? Okay, let's try to learn, okay, how to draw this. Now we understood we have several entities. We have player entity, we have sports clubs, we have games, no, and what else? We have club. Yes, club is there. We have identified that, and we have players and we have games. Okay, so let's see how we can draw this. Let's start from the players, right? So here that is an entity we have. Okay, so what is the entity? Player. You need to excuse me for my drawings because these should be straight lines. Okay, player. Okay, first letter is a capital P and then singular. Done, right? So it's read it again then. Player attached to different sports clubs. Okay, right. So then there should be another entity called club. Okay, you could go with sports club, okay, or else just club. That's fine because they have used a club as well, right? So here, okay, I'm going to go with club. Done. right? And it says player belongs to a sports club. Okay, so we have the relationship now. So here we could draw, okay, belongs. Okay, fine, belongs, right? Now further it is explaining what is this relationship. Is it one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many? So we need to understand that, right? So here a player always belongs to a sports club and he or she can be identified uniquely by the NIC. Okay, still they have not given that information for us. It's in the second paragraph. Okay, so here it says can be identified uniquely by the NIC. So children, like when you are drawing the ER diagram of for the given scenario like this, use the exact like spellings and punctuation that they have given. Okay, so they have given like NIC from the capital, so go with that, right? So here I'm going to put NIC like this. Okay, and this is the uniquely identified field, so this should be the primary key. Please excuse me for my drawings, okay? And then national ID card number. Further, a player has a name. Okay, name is there, right? Name. Okay, and then it says we need to have the composite attribute here. It says name which consists of a surname and the initials. So definitely we need to have a composition here. What is that? Surname and initials. Done. Okay, right. So this paragraph is over. Done. A club. Now this one is the club. Okay, which is uniquely identified by its name. Oh, okay, nice. So here we need to have name. Okay, and it says uniquely identified by the name. Right? Normally clubs are like that. No unique names. Right? And then what? Okay, its name can have many players. Okay, now they are talking about the relationship that you're supposed to incorporate here in between the players and the club, right? So it says club can have many number of players. Okay, so here name can have many number of players. So that means club many number of players. Cardinality is in many, right? And we know player can play only for a one club. Right, that's the normal scenario. Here also they have given belongs to a sports club, right? So if he is playing for a one club, he cannot play for another club. It's obvious thing, right? So here the cardinality ratio and the relationship is what? One to many. That's the idea. Done. Okay, and then okay, player can play games. Okay, right now we have another one, another entity. What is that? Games. Okay, so I'm going to draw it like this. Game. Even though they have mentioned it games, we have game. Okay, we need to put game. So player play. Okay, so we could say, okay, here play, plays. Okay, done, right? Each game in the context is given unique code and a description. Okay, nice. So we have a code here which is unique, and that would be the primary key, and we have a description. Okay, we have the description like this. Done, right? And then a player can play more than one game. Okay, nice. Player can play more than one games. So player can play more than one game. Okay, many, right? And each game is played by at least one player. Each game is played by at least one player. So that means here also we have many, right? Or like when you are learning more, like I didn't go through your syllabus. Like if it says like one or more players, the cardinality ratio you could define on one or more like this. Right? See, one or more players. Here it says at least one player is playing. So that means many number of players are by default they are there. Okay. So here like this. And it says, okay, done. So this is the like answer for the first question, right? And the second question, it says, extend the ER diagram above to include the number of hours played by each player for each game. Okay, now what? Number of hours, right? Number of hours played by each player for each game. So they are talking about play. Okay, they are talking about not the player, not the game. They are talking about the player who played the game. Okay, so definitely, so that could be a descriptive attribute. So here you could go with number of hours. Okay, right? So number of hours. Is it clear? Yeah, is it clear? Any questions that we like came, I mean, we like constructed our answer, right? Number of hours, because the number of hours, it is not like for a one particular entity. No, it's for this particular relationship, play. That's it. And here we have another thing. Player may have a sponsor who has a unique title. All right, sponsor. Now we have another real world thing, sponsor. A sponsor can give sponsorships only for one player. It's obvious. Extend further the ER diagram in part 2 above to include the sponsor details. May have a sponsor. Sometimes may have a sponsor. Right? And now think about the scenario. If the player is going to leave the club, or leave the organization, no longer sponsor details are going to be maintained. No longer it's not necessary for us. We are not dealing with the sponsor, right? The player is going to deal with the sponsor. Sometimes we supposed to like store the sponsor's details as well. So we could say, right, we have this sponsor, and that is what? That should be a weak entity. Okay, that should be a weak entity, because if the player is no longer playing, right, we are not interested about the sponsor details as well. So here, this is a weak relationship, weak entity, sponsor, right? And we have the relationship, we could, yes, we could put has here. And here we know, if it is a weak entity relationship, we have to use double lines. Sorry for my drawings. We have to use double lines like this. Okay, you know that. Okay, and it says a sponsor can give sponsorships only for one player. All right, sponsor has just one player, right? Okay, and player on only just one sponsor, or many number of sponsors could be there, right? Okay, we could put, you can make any assumptions, but you have to denote the assumptions. So here I have made my assumption. What is that? I just, because they have not given here, right? Player may have a sponsor, right? Who has have a sponsor. Okay, so let's go with one then. Have a sponsor, right? Have a sponsor, one. Okay, and then it says sponsor who has a unique title. Okay, fine, title. But here you cannot put this one as a primary key. This should be the partial key. If you have put it as the primary key, then it's wrong. This should be a partial key. Why? This sponsor is a weak entity. That's the idea. Okay, so that's all about the last year's question. So do you have anything to clarify? Yeah, anything that you want to clarify? Is it clear, like how we constructed the ER diagram? Okay. Okay, thanks. Right. So let's move on to the next question. That is 2019 question. I need to find out. Okay, this one. Okay. I hope you have seen this question. Right. Now, in this question, they have given the ER diagram for us, and they are asking us to do some kind of changes and all. Right. So here it says, consider the following ER diagram, which represents the information about projects conducted by staff attached to a software development company. Okay, so this scenario is from a development firm, right? And here it says, okay, by looking at this, let's try to like figure it out what is going on here, right? You could see staff entities there. Okay, staff, right? projects are there, right? And company is available. For the company, we have company registration number, name, address. So that means they have number of like companies available. That's the idea. Other than that, if it is just one company, we are not going to put that record to a database. Why we do so? Because like to remember a one record, database is not needed. If you have many number of records only, you could go with the database. That's the idea, right? So here staff members are there. So okay, staff ID is the primary key and the projects are there. Project ID is the primary key. Okay, we have relationships like this. Done, right? Question number 1. It says the number of hours. Okay, number of hours that each staff member works on each project is recorded. Number of hours. Okay, see, this is the way that they have given number of hours that each staff member works on each project is recorded. Draw the attribute of number of hours in the relevant position of the ER diagram with the correct symbol and the label. Okay, so if they say so, you have to stick into the like given name. Okay, otherwise you won't get marks, right? So here number of hours, see the way they have written. Okay, so this is about staff and project, right? Number of hours that they have worked for a one project. That's the idea. So definitely it should be a descriptive attribute. Why? It is not belongs to the staff. It is not belongs to the like project as well. It is about like staff worked for a project. How many hours? So here, definitely it should comes to here, right? And then use the exact format that they have given, number of hours. Okay, and then draw the symbol like this, distribute attribute. Sorry, this descriptive attribute like this. Okay, sorry for my drawings. Okay, wait, I'll draw it. Right. Okay, so here number of hours. Done. Okay, use the exact term. Yes, can you hear me? Because I lost my right. Okay, done. No? Right. Okay, I had a problem with my computer. Okay, and then second question. For each accepted project, a temporary location is rented for the staff. Okay, for the duration of the project. For each location, okay, each location, it's about now separate entity. We have now separate entity. What is that? Location. Okay, so here, what is that? Location. Location. Each location, the owner name, phone number, address, rent, rented date, and rented period are recorded. Once the project has, one project has one and only location, right? A rented location is used for only one project. All right. So just for one project, you have just one location, and for one location, you have just one project. That's the idea. And a rented location is used for only one project, right? When a certain project is completed, the location rented for the project will be released and handed over to the owner. All right. So if the project is no longer available, we are not interested about the location details. So again, what you have to do is this location is what? It's a weak entity. Okay, that's the idea. It's a weak entity here, right? So here, okay, so you have to connect this to the existing ER diagram. That's what they are asking, right? And here I'm going to draw location and children. It should be a weak entity. So double lines. Okay, location. And we have the relationship with the projects, right? So like we have the relationship with the project. So the relationship name is has, and then you have to have a double line this, like, and also for the relationship also you need to have this particular, right, double lines. Done. Okay, and then Here you have to put the attributes. When you are putting the attributes, please use the terms that they have given, the exact terms. Owner name. Okay, owner name. Owner name. Okay, right. And then what? Phone number. They have not mentioned that the phone number is a multi-valued or not, so just use a normal attribute. And then address. Okay, and then rent. Okay, and rented date. Okay, and then rented period. Like this. And then what is the unique value that they says? Each project, the owner name, phone number, address, rented date, record. One project has only one location, 1-to-1. Okay, they have not mentioned any type of a like what unique thing here to have the partial key. So you can make any assumption like by saying owner name is the partial key, or like you can keep it as it is. No issue on that, because they have not mentioned any unique thing. No, they have not mentioned, right? So after completing the project, what they are doing is what they are going to hand over this location. So that means no longer they are not interested about the location details. That's the idea. Okay, so any questions? Is it clear? Like this is a different question. They have given the ER diagram we supposed to complete, and the previous question they have given the scenario we supposed to draw the ER diagram. Okay, so like any questions from the 2019? Yes. Yeah, like what you can yes, Nuhansa, what you can do is you can write the assumption, right? They have not mentioned that it is a multi-valued attribute, right? You can make assumptions. You can write the assumption, okay, I'm considering the phone number as a multi-valued attribute, like that. Then mention it and then draw it. Then it's not a problem. Okay, otherwise if they have not mentioned, don't do that, right? So like just here according to the marking scheme that I have gone through, they have given the marks for use the correct terms, right? If all the things are correct, you are getting bonus marks as well, just 0.5. And then like the terms means like here owner name, right? So this is the exact term that we have used with the correct punctuation, so you have to use the same thing, right? So if you are doing anything which they have not mentioned, please write down the assumptions. Even at the university also, we are encouraging students to write the assumptions. If they have made the assumption, okay, that's of course fine. We're supposed to give the marks. That's the idea. Okay. You're welcome. Right. So let's take the other question. Right, and this is the 2017 question, I think. Yes. Okay, it's a little bit different. It's about normalization. Here I didn't discuss about the normalization, but I'll tell you like how to do this, right? And relational mapping, right? Another different area. Once you completed the ER diagram, you're supposed to do the relational mapping. Once you've done the relational mapping, you're supposed to do the normalization. That's the process, right? I told you, if you have done the correct analysis in the ER diagram, once you turn these things into relational mapping, no need to do the normalization. Automatically, the normalization is there. That's the idea. Okay. So for that, you have to be strong with the ER mapping, right? ER diagram analysis. Then only you could come up with the proper relational tables. Okay. So here, this is the question in yes, this is from 2017. A person can own one or more mobile phones. Right. Okay. Look at this. Person can own one or more mobile phones. One mobile phone belongs to a single person only. Okay, we have that here, right? Assume that a mobile phone can be uniquely identified by its telephone number. Okay, this is the primary key. National identity card number is used to identify the person uniquely. Okay, done. Right? Above statements are represented by the ER diagram in figure 4.2. Okay, this is the figure 4.2. We have two entities, mobile phone and the person, and then we have two like uniquely identified fields. Convert the above ER diagram into third normal form relations to be implemented in relational database, right? Okay, like now here, what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to convert these into relational mapping, right? I hope you are familiar with the relational mapping techniques. If not, like I didn't check with the syllabus, like I just take the question from the paper and I'm just discussing that. Okay, I hope you are familiar with the relational mapping. If you know the normalization, I know you have the normalization, so definitely relational mapping is there, right? So here, this is one-to-many relationship, right? You have one-to-many relationship. So in this case, when you're mapping this ER diagram into the relational database, right? If it is one-to-many, we have just one rule to follow, right? You have to write, okay, relations from each entity, right? So that means we have to write a relation from person and another relation from mobile phone. Okay, let's write. So here, person, right? And then mobile phone. Okay, right. And then person, we have just one attribute, NIC. Use the exact terms that they have given, NIC number. Even though you don't like here to write the N as capitals, just use it because they have given. So that's the primary key, right? And then mobile phone entity, we have just one attribute. What is that? Telephone number. Okay, right? And that's the primary key, right? So if you have one-to-many relationship, what you're supposed to do is one side primary key should be a foreign key of the many side. That's the rule that you have to follow. If it is one-to-many, one side's primary key should go as a foreign key to the many side. So what is the one side? Is the person. One side primary key is the NIC number. So what is the many side? That is the mobile phone. So we have to take this NIC number to this particular mobile phone relation as a foreign key. So here, okay, this is the mobile phone relation and this should be the foreign key, NIC number. Okay, right? So is it clear? Yeah, is it clear? So then that's all, right? So here for person, we don't have any other attributes, so we can close the relation. For mobile phone, okay, we have mapped the relationship as well, so we can close this, right? Okay, what you can do in I didn't see in the A-level paper marking scheme. Yeah, okay, thank you. I didn't see that, but when we are doing the relational mapping, now here this is the foreign key, you know, and this is this comes from the person relation. So here normally what we are doing is we are putting an arrow to here to denote, to tell that okay, this is a foreign key which comes from the person table, right? So see, NIC is mapping to this NIC number, right? I don't sure whether you have learned this, but normally once we converted it to relational mapping, we are just denoting the foreign keys as well, like this. Okay, so that's it. So this is the third normal form, right? So hope it is clear. Any questions? It's a very small question that you have in 2017. Okay. So I'll take the last question. Okay, this is from 2016 actually, right? Yeah. Okay. They have given a very small explanation with a lot of details actually. It says, and hope you can see the question, right? An education institute maintains a timetable to manage its lectures, practical classes and seminars. Okay, right? So here they have timetables to manage lectures, practical classes, and seminars. The timetable consists of 2-hour time periods, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 12 noon, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, we are not interested about those things because this is ER diagram. Okay, and practical classes, and seminars are assigned to 1 or more time period. All right, so they have assigned to 1 or more time period. A lecture is assigned to a lecturer. Okay, a lecture is assigned to a lecturer, and a practical class is conducted by a group of demonstrators. At least 2 lecturers are responsible for a seminar. Okay, at least 2 lecturers are responsible for seminar. Right. Draw an entity relationship diagram, ER diagram for the above system. State all your assumptions clearly. So if you're going to make any assumptions, you have to state them here very clearly. Then I told you, you will get marks if you have done the proper assumptions, right? So definitely they're supposed to give you marks. Okay, right. So let's start. So now here we could see we have lectures, lecturers, we have practical classes, we have seminars, we have demonstrators, a lot of things are there, right? So let's start with what maybe a lecture, right? Okay. So I'm going to start with lecture. Okay, fine, lecture. And then what? Yes, what it says. An educational institute maintains a timetable to manage lectures, practical classes, and seminars. The timetable consists of 2-hour time periods. Okay, timetable is there. Okay, lectures, practical classes, and seminars are assigned to 1 or more time periods. Okay, so here we have timetable, right? We could say timetable. I'll draw it somewhere around here. And we understood this timetable has time slots. 2-hour time slots. Okay, so here we could say this has time slots. Okay, and then we could understand the timetable consists of 2-hour time periods. A lot of periods are there, right? And yes, then what is the cardinality ratio that we can go ahead with this? Yes, what is the cardinality ratio? Any idea? You can use the chat to tell me the answer. Any idea what is the cardinality ratio that we could go? Yeah, right. So we could use here, yes, 1 to many, right? Or we could make these things like this. Timetable has many time slots, and that time slot is available on many timetables, isn't it? What do you think? Yeah, what do you think? That particular time slot, 8 to 10, it's not available in just a one timetable. It is available on many number of timetables, no? Isn't it? What do you think? Yes, you can use a chat. Yes, right. So here we could go with what? 1 to many. Okay, because this 10 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 1 to 3, every day is available. It's available in a lot of timetables then, right? So that's why I have used here. You can argue. Then if you're going to make any assumptions, please clearly mention. So my assumption is this time slot is going to be available on many number of timetables. So because of that, I have gone through with the many to many relationship. Yes. Do we have a question? Maintain a timetable. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then go with 1. Okay. So then you have to decide on what I mean. Sometimes I could see sometimes you could decide on, okay, education institute also needs to come under this particular thing. But my idea is what? Right, if you are going to put the educational institute here, right? Okay, institute here, like what will happen if the education in institute has just one institute, so no point of like what, no point of dealing with a database, right? Why you are like using a database to store just one record, right? No point. Okay, then let's do it like this. So according to, like, let's assume that you have just one timetable, right? Okay, you have just one timetable and you are going to assign the records to this particular timetable. Okay, so just one timetable, and then yes, okay, fine. So I just got a message from the host of this particular program, that means APIIT host, right? So now like it's 3:55, right? Okay. So now let's do something like this. Since this is the first like session of yours, right? We are going to have series of sessions, and you have to tell us what is the like exact day of week and what is the exact time that you are free to have these sessions, right? And then now it's supposed to finish by 3:30 actually, but I took more time, so I have to finish this session by 4 o'clock. So because of that, I'm going to give you this question as a homework. So what you can do is you can attempt this question, right? Like be genuine, okay? Attempt this question and you can bring this question for the next week. So then, or else I'll give you my email address. You would be able to email me. Okay, I'll give you like my email address for you. So you would be able to email me the answers. Then I would be able to give you some comments. Okay, so I'll like put my email address to the to the chat. Yeah, right. Okay, so you could find my email address. So like once you have like done with the question, you can take a screen or a photo and then attach it to the email and send me via emails. Then I would be able to give you comments. And before starting the next session, I'll like explain how to draw this. Just think and draw it. Okay, and like just tell us what is the preferable day of week and what is the time that you can like participate for the next session, like according to your teacher, like what I got to know that you want to not in the right, sorry, I'll send it to you, right? Okay, right, so like we have to discuss about the logic gates and context diagrams, and then I got another area, right? I'll check with the like the things that you have requested, so we can arrange accordingly. Just like preferable day and time, please. Can you like drop the day and time to the chat box? Yeah. Okay, do it like this, right? You have my email address with you. So discuss among your friends, right? And then like fix a day, right? Like most of the time I'm available in the afternoons, right? Like this. And then like you can fix the class to the afternoon. Okay. So tell us a day and then like email me the current time and the current day is good. Okay, right. Thursday is good. Okay. So if it is so, then we can have the next session in the other Thursday as well. So like try the question, send me the answers, right? I'll like give you my comments, and before starting the next session, I'll give you like the answer for the question. Okay. And also if you have any other concerns, please like let us know. Then like we would be able to like consider those as well. Right. Sure. Right. Let's do normalization. Okay. I'll note them. Right. Normalization. No? Okay. Fine. Okay. Let's do normalization as well. Right. Okay then. So so let's wind up the session then. The first webinar session. Let's wind up, and I'll see you on next week. The same date then, same time. Okay. So have a good nice week for you, and stay safe. And I'll see you on next week. Right. Okay. You're welcome.